Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the Woke Bros. Of course, I'm Big Wos, aka Wos and Nando, for those of you who were looking for a French lesson. Joined as always by my partner in crime out on the west side of Los Angeles, Nando Vila. What's up, brother?
Not much. Doing well. Back from vacation. Feeling fresh.
You stay on vacation, boy. Good. This man, he's a Spaniard for real.
Vacation's a state of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On today's show coming up, a listener reached out to us and said that he wanted us to talk about our own personal spirituality, our own journey with things like religion, spirituality, and how we got to be where we're at with it today. And I thought that would be a cool thing to talk about because y'all know I'm atheist, but, it's more complicated than that. And obviously, I know y'all want to know about Nando's own spiritual journey. So we're going to get into that at the end of the show. Bernie Sanders has somehow made himself into the freaking leader and the voice of the Democratic Party. Obviously, there's the White House, but outside of the White House, the person who is carrying the flag and effectively communicating the message of what the agenda of this party is Bernie Sanders, more so than anybody else. And, he's made some waves this week, and we're going to talk about just that. But first, guys, Joe Biden is trying to do this thing. Chuck Schumer has come out and said that he's going to bring the PRO Act to a vote once he gets 50 signatures. They're at 45. The fact that he's come out and said that while they're at 45 means that this thing is about to be over the goal line, right? Like, you don't come out publicly and say that you're going to bring the PRO Act to a vote if you're at 12 or 13 or even 30 votes. Like, you come out and say it because you know this thing is about to happen. And man, Nando, are the Dems learning lessons? Or I don't recognize this Democratic Party is what I'm trying to say to you right now. What is going
there's
on?
There's an element to that for sure, but there's also just an element that there is a more strong and powerful left. It's not that powerful, but it's meaningful. It's not going away, and it has a much more robust voice in the national conversation, largely thanks to Bernie Sanders, as you mentioned. I mean, but also just the millions of people who supported him and who, have launched all kinds of grassroots campaign in the wake of his presidential campaign in 2016, which I see as kind of a watershed moment in American politics. When he kind of decides to run in 2016, it kind of changes the game a little bit. Obviously, though, that comes from the material conditions on the ground, which is that inequality is worse than ever. There's been an economic crisis since 2008. There's the pandemic crisis. All these things contribute to the changes that we're seeing. But what I think is crucial to this is that Chuck Schumer, as much as we hate him and as much as he's just kind of a loser, is the leader of the Senate right now. And Chuck Schumer just so happens to be the senator from New York. And New York is the state in which we have the strongest left in this country. Chuck Schumer now fears a primary from the left more than he fears the right. And that's the bottom line.
And it's important
the only way Chuck Schumer is going to be defeated. I'm happy you mentioned that, Nando.
It's important that we mention that Chuck Schumer is also the state where Wall Street exists. So that's Chuck Schumer's existence, is those dueling realities.
Yeah. And obviously, I don't think that Chuck Schumer is going to do anything super meaningful to destroy Wall Street anytime soon, but he does feel, I think rightfully so, that he is more vulnerable from a primary challenge from someone like AOC than from someone like, I don't know, Andrew Cuomo. Or I guess Andrew Cuomo, not Andrew Cuomo now, but
Andrew Cuomo
the
then.
Equivalent, whoever the Andrew Cuomo-like person is. He thinks that if AOC ran for his seat, he might sweat. And that's why he's behaving the way he is. He's just been much more amenable to the left than what would happen if the Senate Majority Leader, for whatever reason, was someone from Virginia or some other state where the left isn't as powerful. I think that's a huge part of it. That Schumer, who in his heart of hearts is not a leftist in any meaningful way, just
Like
the political reality is that he fears the left.
no,
more
Nando,
than,
you said
than the right at
meaningful,
this point.
like in no way whatsoever.
No way. Yeah. In zero way. So, yeah, I mean, so the PRO Act, which is this like massive labor legislation, which would transform this country. I mean, it would absolutely transform this country. It's the most meaningful piece of labor legislation that would be passed in 90 years, essentially, since the 1930s, since 1935, the Wagner Act, which really codified organized labor in this country. And So yeah, I mean, the fact that they have 45 senators on board is already pretty remarkable. The 5 holdouts are the ones that you can predict: Kristen Sinema, Joe Manchin, Mark Warner from Virginia, who's incredibly conservative, Mark Kelly from Arizona also. But you can imagine like sustained pressure and hand wringing and things like that. Maybe it gets to 50 and maybe it sees the floor. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but because organized labor has awoken a little bit from its slumber of the past kind of 2 decades, in which they just kind of were totally beholden to the Democratic Party. Now they're willing to exercise a little bit of leadership within the Democratic Party. Be like, no, this is our priority. You need to push this. Like Obama already fucked them with card check in 2009. He promised he was going to bring it, he was going to make it a part of his priority. The unions trusted him, and then he turned his back on them. The unions probably learned from that experience, and they're not going to let that happen again. They're not going to fall for that trick again. So they're actually exerting a lot of pressure. And as weak as they are now, historically speaking, they're still a pretty powerful force. They still have more power than you would think. I mean, we talked about the Hunts Point market strike and things like that. And we talk about what's going on in Bessemer, Alabama. The unions are starting to exert their power a little bit more than they were, say, 15, 20 years ago, when they were really kind of absent. So, yeah, I mean, if this is able to pass, which I still think the odds are pretty long, it would be so utterly transformative. And maybe the whole thing doesn't pass, but maybe like, a decent chunk of it passes. The effects that it would have on this country are almost impossible to like imagine, because it would just completely change the terrain for organized labor in America.
Man, you sent us in our production chat, you sent us Ryan Grimm's tweet of a New York Times piece where essentially people in Joe Biden's
is an Axios.
Oh, Axios, sorry. In an Axios piece where Joe Biden's people are essentially telling them that, like, yo, we like being considered more bold than Barry was. They're enjoying let's face it, man, the justified praise that they've gotten for just doing it. And man, again, I'm not going to hesitate to talk about it, Nando, because we did spend months on this show freaking dreading the Biden administration. We spent months on this show mourning Biden's ascendance, right? And, something that I don't think we considered was just the idea that they would do something, and just the sort of self-indulgence of it all, the like self-aggrandizement of it all, of like, wow, people think we're great. Like, people are actually noticing that we're doing more than Barry, and they're giving us props for it.
Yeah.
And how intoxicating that is, because Biden was sort of a sidekick in this, Beatlemania that was Barry's presidency, right? Like, he was a sidekick to that, and he saw how much, quite frankly, dick sucking went on with Barry. Yeah. And he's come out and he's done stuff, and people are like, yo, he's just more bold. His administration is out the gate been more bold than Barry's. And they like that. And it's something that I didn't consider, Nando. And I wonder how much it does have to do with the climate being different, and how much props Barry would have gotten for being actually bold, and not just rhetorically bold? How much of that he would have gotten in 2008 and 2009? Because, like, let's face it, like, Jennifer Rubin is now a fucking quote unquote left winger. You know, that just wasn't the case back then. I wonder if they would have gotten that love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a big part of it, like, you're right, that the conditions have changed so much. I mean, we've been 12 years since the financial crisis of 2008, or close to 13 years now. That really changed everything. And I think that the experience of the last, decade plus has really kind of changed a lot of the fundamental assumptions that people in power had, which would have been, much more unified in opposition to Obama had he pushed for something more grand. That is undoubtedly true. But, at the end of the day, it's what we were just talking about with Bernie. You got to show leadership, and you got to bend, reality to your will, especially if you're in an overwhelming position of power, like being the president of the United States. People talk about, like, the backlashes to Obama because he was black, but we forget about the enormous amount of goodwill that there was toward Obama around the world because he was such a likable figure and he was such a remarkable, inspirational figure. Plus the very real grassroots mobilization that he marshaled in his first campaign, which he then purposefully shut down. That's how you defeat opposition, is through power and your ability to marshal millions of people out onto the streets with just a press conference, like, which Bernie can do. Bernie does that. And he's like, I can bring attention to an issue like Bessemer, Alabama, by going there and just talking about it.
And that's why you're one of the best in the biz, Nando, because you naturally transitioned us into Bernie. And sorry to cut you off, but I do want to get into it because
no, not at all.
Man, I'm proud of Bernie. I'm proud of what he's doing. Because I think some of us were a little disappointed in how willing Bernie was to cede the ground to Biden and them people, and how willing he was to just be like, I'm going to be a good soldier for Joe. I think a lot of us were like, I would have liked to see Bernie be a little bit salty about our loss, right? But turns out he knew what the fuck he was doing. And he understood that they understood that he was a credible threat to the party orthodoxy and the establishment, and that he has people behind him. And he just did an interview with Ezra Klein, and whatever. I'm not here to litigate Ezra Klein and his standing within the greater political punditry culture. Like, you can feel however you want to feel about Ezra Klein, but the bottom line is he's one of the top 5 most important people in liberal media. Like, he's like, it's Maddow,
possibly the top.
Right. He's like, he's in the top 5 most important people in political media. And I say that because Bernie just did an interview with him. And at the top of that damn interview, Ezra Klein gets on the mic and says, yo, Joe Biden may have won that damn primary and won the election, but it's Bernie Sanders shit that's getting through. They're legislating through the filter of a Bernie Sanders worldview, which is no short of insane. It's crazy what is happening. Yeah. And he has Bernie on the show, and whatever, you guys should go listen to it. I think so. I think it's important because, we make fun of normies all the time, but Ezra Klein is basically the Elvis of the normies. And guess what? He's a fucking Bernie bro. Period. He gets on that damn mic and he says, what does he say? He said, yo, Bernie, tell me, because he said, first, I don't think the stimulus went far enough. And he said, convince me why I should be excited about this. And Bernie Sanders said, I don't have to convince you a shit. 75% of the American people are excited about this shit. I said, yo.
Yeah.
This motherfucker is doing it. And, and we can get into sort of how he's using his position within the party to get stuff done. But I want to talk about Bessemer, Alabama, and like Bernie is the one that is carrying the Democratic Party's flag down there. It's him that's doing it. It's nobody else. Where the fuck is Sherrod Brown, by the way? What the fuck is he doing? Where is he at in all of this? I know that Ohio is like straight up a red state now, so he has to shut the fuck up about a lot of stuff now. But like, whatever. That's a sidebar. But like, Bernie Sanders is the representative of the Democratic Party down there. He's the one linking up with Killer Mike and my brother Danny Glover down there. It's Bernie Sanders. It's him that's going on Ezra Klein to defend the stimulus. Like, it's incredible, Nando.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when during the 2020 primary, because the disappointment was so profound
tough
and stinging, because we actually tasted defeat. We actually tasted victory. We could taste it.
Feel it.
After Nevada, we could feel it. It was like, holy shit, this guy could do it. And then, but I think that once Obama made those phone calls and Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped out and Biden won South Carolina and the party unified behind Biden, it was over. It was just over. There was nothing Bernie could have done differently that would have changed that fundamental fact that Biden was in the driver's seat. Once they unified around Biden, like Bernie could only win in the same way that Trump won, which is that the opposition to him was fragmented, and he won essentially by getting a minority of the votes in every state. He was never gonna be, given the nature of the Democratic Party coalition these days, which we talked about with Mac Karp, in which there's a ton of suburban people out there. There's a ton of as long as they were fragmented, he had the best chance of winning because he had the strongest kind of minority support. But once they all rallied around Joe Biden, it was over. And I think he knew it from that moment. I think he didn't feel that he had a shot. And like the second Klobuchar and Buttigieg dropped out, it was over. He was toast. He knew it. So he had two choices to make. Do I fight and try to do the best I can with what I got? Or do I kind of go out guns blazing like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, And he decided, I'm going to fight. I'm going to keep going. I lost. All right. So now I'm going to do what I can. He knew he was going to be the head of the budget committee if the Democrats took the Senate, which was likely and ended up happening. The head of the budget committee in the Senate is an incredibly powerful position, as was seen because he was the one controlling what went into that fucking reconciliation bill. He was controlling it, and he could strong arm senators because he knew that they needed this for the coronavirus. So he could strong arm it as much as he wanted. And that had a huge effect. And it seems clear that Biden, for all his like ideological, horribleness and awful track record or whatever, does respond to political moments, political wins, always has. He always has been kind of a weather vane in that sense. He's not like a dyed-in-the-wool ideologue. And for whatever reason, he likes Bernie. He just likes him. You can tell he likes him. He likes him, And I think Bernie just realized that and was like, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use this for what I can. And I think that Biden is starting to realize, as was noted by that quote in Axios, that like, the big stuff that he's doing gets him praise. The sort of the moderation, the compromise, all that shit. It pleases no one in the end.
Like that's what I think centrists
you get no points,
don't
no brownie
understand
points.
Is that you actually have no constituency. Like there's no like a large swath of people who want
there is no
this,
center.
like tepid shit. Like there's people who need help and people who don't. That's it. Yeah. And if you give people who need help this like piddling small fucking amount of it, they don't notice it.
Yeah. There's been political science studies that I encourage people to seek out. Look up what a Mars voter is. A Mars voter. People think of the average quote unquote swing voter or independent as someone kind of in the middle who is just, likes a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. That is not the case. quote unquote centrist voters or independent voters or swing voters, whatever you want to call them, what the Mars voter theory says is that they're called middle American radicals, meaning that they have very extreme positions. They just don't fit into the partisan kind of sorting, in which like they might think you need to tax the rich at 80%. And you also need to like murder every immigrant.
Yes.
Like that's like the average quote unquote centrist,
yes.
They're extreme positions, but they don't fit into like the sort of party orthodoxies in any way. So moderation and kind of like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Actually, no one likes that shit outside of like Washington Post editorial writers.
DC. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the only people who love that shit. But voters, no one likes that shit. If Biden had come out with a $5,000 check,
they would have
loved that shit. No one's like, I think they're going a little too far. Like, no. So, it looks like American politics, which is an oil tanker and takes forever to turn and all that shit. But like the potential virtuous cycle between Bernie agitating on the left and influencing Biden to go bigger and bolder, and then Biden doing that, and then getting a positive feedback loop because he sees he becomes more and more popular. Like once this $1.9 trillion stimulus starts getting, in people's pockets, the economy starts to tick up, the coronavirus, vaccine, everyone gets vaccinated, everyone starts going out, and I mean, look at Miami right now, man. People are fucking going crazy in my hometown. Like, this summer is going to be fucking madness. Like Joe Biden could be the most popular president of our lifetime. And like, if he gets into that virtuous feedback loop of like the bolder I do, the bigger, praise I get, the more popular I get, we might see some pretty good things coming out of it. But, we got to keep the pressure on. We got to keep it, we got to keep our eyes wide open. We know like that there's monsters all over the place. But that's kind of the dynamic that American politics is kind of entering right now. So yeah, thanks a lot to Bernie.
Man, it's crazy. We spend a lot of time talking about what's happening in Alabama and Bessemer at that one Amazon factory that, is rippling out in such a crazy
5 days left.
5 days until that fateful vote. And again, I just can't stress it enough. Like this shit matters that, basically probably the third most recognizable, for whatever, outside of the Clintons and Obama, who are uber celebrities, like Bernie is one of the most popular Democrats alive. And he's going to that freaking town in support of those workers. And he's representing that damn party. It's not Joe Manchin, who has never done anything for anybody in his fucking life, right? It's not him. It's Bernie doing it. And, the way he is seizing this moment, I'm proud of him, man. I'm proud to say that I support the guy and that, I'm proud to call myself a Bernie bro. You know what I'm saying? Like the way he's carrying Nando kind of touched on it, but like the dejection that existed after we realized we weren't going to win that primary as Bernie supporters, for it to get to where it is now, it's amazing, man. And it's because of Bernie's vision and his his dedication to the cause, the mission. Like this dude is about the mission and nothing else. It's amazing. I think, blessed people with more vanity would have been pissed about that shit and would have, just started wars over how that whole thing went down. And Bernie did something else because he's dedicated to the shit that we started this pod over. So salute to Bernie Sanders. I know we do it a lot on this show, but what the fuck, man? The guy keeps delivering.
He's the best. He's our best leader.
Period. And it's not even close. And so, we mentioned at the top of the show, Nando, that we would get into the subject of spirituality and our own personal journeys. I can start on my own. Obviously, I'm the child of two Haitian immigrants. if you know anything about that part of the world, you know these people are freaking Christian, and mostly Catholic. I went to Catholic school from grades 1 through 12, basically my whole school life. Um, and everybody around me is Catholic and all of that stuff. And by like, I want to say 8th grade, I had decided that I was no longer Catholic, that I was probably what I realize now is atheism. I don't subscribe to any of the orthodoxies of modern organized religion. Which is to say that no, I don't think Jesus walked on water. I don't think Father Abraham had 250 kids, or I don't think that Moses parted the Red Sea. I don't subscribe to any of that shit. I do think because my life has been centered around Christianity for so much of it, I think there's something to be learned about Jesus, who was the first socialist, right? Like there's definitely lessons to be gleaned from what the New Testament is trying to tell you about this guy, Jesus, about the idea that this guy was the Son of Man, the Son of God, like literally a God on earth. And he wanted to hang out with poor people. He wanted to wash the feet of the homeless people. He wanted to serve people. I think there's something 100% powerful in that message. Like when it comes to who you want to fuck or marry or all of that other dumb shit that people be on, I don't have time for it. But the message that the New Testament is trying to teach us about service toward others, unto others, that's a message that absolutely resonates with me. I think, some of the stories that resonated with me when I was in school in religious class I was drawn to Mary Magdalene. I was drawn to, the idea that they was stoning some lady for whatever reason. And, Jesus stepped up and said, yo, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Like, we don't get to treat people like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, love your neighbor. Like all of those things are things that resonated with me 100% and still do. But no, I don't think Jesus floated into outer space on Easter Sunday. No, I do not believe that, and I never will. But I think that those lessons definitely are things that inform my worldview to this day. And I think quite frankly, I think it informs my socialism straight up and down. I just believe in the power of what people can do. I do believe that people are generally good in the way that we define it, in that they don't want to fucking do harm to others, just want to be happy and are happy when other people are happy. Generally, I feel that way. And I think growing up around all the Christianity, and again, and not to toot my own horn, but when I was a kid, I was the kid that I paid attention to what these teachers were saying in class. Like in religious class, I paid attention. It was like, wait, so like we gotta forgive people and give them like second chances? Like that's what Jesus like, yeah, you gotta forgive people. You gotta let it go. Yeah. You have to be tolerant. You have to be X, Y, and Z. Like, it's like, wow, like it those things absolutely stayed with me. And yeah, they inform everything that I do. Like, am I a humanist? Probably. You know what I'm saying? Like that's generally what I think is guiding who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis. Like, I just think that people are generally good, man. And that's how we should operate on that assumption. I'm somebody who like, I really wouldn't lock my doors generally. Like, I don't think people are trying to fuck me over. Like, I just don't feel that way. Yeah. And that's, and I know I'm rambling, but like, that's just my general worldview. Now, as far as, do I think there's a God or whatever? And I tell people the same shit. Like all of these things that cannot be explained to us, to me, that's God. What you can't explain. You know what I'm saying? And back in the days, that's why people thought the sun was God, because they couldn't fathom how this thing could operate. And now we have science and we understand certain things or whatever. So we've advanced past that. But to me, the unexplainable, that's God. And that, I guess that's my, fucking spiritual concept, Nando.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about our old friend Mike. Michael Brooks when this question was posed to us, because it's something that he talked about a lot. You know, he was a pretty spiritual person. He always talked about, if you're gonna have a left, it needs to be a spiritual left, because if you don't have that element, it becomes very difficult to transcend the petty kind of bullshit you see on a day-to-day basis. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that in many ways, that if you don't take a much broader view, you are vulnerable to falling into a lot of the traps that often happens when you live a life devoid of that. So, you know, for example, like the key tenets that you just discussed, forgiveness being at the top of it, humanism, believing in the genuine goodness of people, I think are things that are worth keeping in mind when you see a tweet you don't like and you want to react to it, you know, or when you want someone to get fired over something they said, you know, if they didn't say the exact right words. You know, the everything about the online world pushes people towards bad faith interpretations of what they say, or like judges people for their worst moment. And I want you to think about the worst thing you've ever done in your life, and then imagine there were cameras there, and then imagine if you would be willing to survive that thing, whatever it is, the most horrible thing you've ever done in your life, being filmed and posted online for everyone to see. And then would you want to be judged for that moment? And I firmly believe that most of us would not want to be judged for that moment. Most of us would not survive that moment in the current environment. You know, we would want forgiveness, but we would not necessarily get it. And I think that informs a lot of my, for lack of a better term, humanism of spirituality, is that like you can't judge people for their worst moment. You know, I remember when there was this ESPN reporter who got, there was a video of her basically talking down to a tow truck person. Her car got towed, and then she went to the place where her car got towed, and she berated the guy who towed her car in like pretty awful language, like being very classist, and, you know, saying like, what, you probably didn't even go to college and shit like that. And, you know, she was clearly very frustrated, and she reacted poorly, and it was filmed, and it was maybe one of her worst moments. And like, do I think that she's necessarily a bad person because of that? Like, no, we've all been frustrated and lost our temper and said shit we regret. It's just a very human thing. So I think that's in short order these days. People love to remember the worst thing someone's ever done and bring it up whenever they're trying to do better, whenever they're trying to better themselves. And I think Mike's mantra that he said a lot, which, you know, he would himself tell you he didn't always live up to, which was be kind to people and ruthless with systems, is something that is very worth living, words that are worth living by. I also grew up Catholic. I don't know, maybe Woz, we got that in common. We should call it like the Catholic Bros. I actually went to a Catholic university. I went to Boston College, which is Jesuit.
Which, by the way, the people who don't know, the Jesuits are the cool crew of the.
They're like the progressive.
Of the Catholic
they're the progressive
Church.
Catholics who get like banned every once in a while because they're too progressive. But they were very much part of, very much influential in what was called liberation theology in Latin America, which was this sort of strain of Catholicism, which was very, very left wing. And a lot of the priests and stuff that led the sort of leftist movements in Latin America, anti-oppression, anti-colonial, and like revolutionary movements were Catholic priests as part of liberation theology. I mean, Oscar Romero in El Salvador was murdered by CIA backed death squads, and so there is something to that. I mean, I personally am like you. I'm atheist. I don't have that kind of belief, but I'm not also one of those people who like goes down the new atheist
No,
rabbit hole and is like, you're an
no, no,
idiot
no,
if
no,
you
no, no,
believe this
no,
Fantasyland fairy
no.
tale. I don't judge people for that either. I think that especially the people who live sort of earnestly by the teachings, right? That don't just believe the sort of literal stories, but maybe believe the teachings behind them and sort of earnestly try to live their lives by them. I find to be an admirable quality in people. But yeah, just be kind to one another out there. And I know that, like, when your life is shitty and when the world around you seems shitty, there's a little bit of a rush when you get to like feel morally superior to someone who has done an embarrassing thing or a wrong thing or even a bad thing. And I would just encourage everyone to think about the worst thing that they've ever done and think about whether they would want that to be aired out publicly or not.
And
if
I
it
want
were
people
aired
to
out
understand a sort of like, this is how you connect your politics to this stuff. I think me and Nando like to toot our own horn for being deeply ideological, and damn right. Like, I think a lot of this cancel culture or consequence culture or whatever, to me, the same people who will get on the internet and talk shit about the Clintons and Biden and the crime bill will then be cool with that shit. I'm like, this is crime bill behavior that you guys are exhibiting. This is three strikes behavior. Yeah. This is reactionary, conservative behavior that you're engaging in, right? Like, you don't want to be those kinds of people. So don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be, one chance and you're out. You don't have to lack empathy and forgiveness, even for white people who fuck up. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, you don't have to be like that, because I'm telling you, in the end, it's not going to work out in our favor in the long term. It just doesn't. It doesn't work out for us to be reactionary, conservative psychopaths. I'm sorry. Like, when you guys want people to get fired, you're participating in crime bill behavior. You're participating in super predator behavior. That's what you're doing, dude. So, like, knock it off, And again, like, I'm telling you, like, all of this stuff, this sort of spiritual stuff and this idea of this belief in, human ingenuity and human goodness. I know it's pie in the sky and it's going to be like, Jesus Christ, Woz, you're a fucking sap. Get over it. I am. And I'm not going to act like I'm not going to behave in any other fashion, and I'll end with this. Like, I went on my athletic show with DA Hoops Adjacent, and I didn't defend Myers Leonard, but the guy's right to have a job. Yeah, I'm going to defend that. I don't think just saying that terrible word that's a slur for Jewish people should get you fired and banned from the NBA. No, that's a whack thing that he said. And yes, if he would have said nigger, I would be saying the exact same thing. Period. Period. You don't get to, you shouldn't have to get fired for that, bro. Like, he shouldn't be banned from the league for it. He might be banned for the league because he kind of sucks now. But like, just for doing one bad thing and just saying it, not that he threw his wife down a staircase or that he like did something. He said something whack. And so, like, I'm telling you, bro, I don't believe we should act like that. Yes, there should be consequences towards people's actions. Yeah, sure. We're going to make consequences, but we don't have to have them be extreme ones, even for people who we don't like. And, that's just being true to what you believe in, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that instinct. I mean, I didn't follow that story very closely, although I am a Heat fan. But, my instinct is always just to be like, let's just, he said the bad thing. I get it. It sucks. He's an idiot. He's a fucking idiot. He's a dumbass athlete. I get it. Like, I don't know. Maybe like there's definitely ways to find out. Like there's definitely options out there for things like that. Like, maybe some sort of rehabilitation thing, an education thing. Like, should we try to like help people get better, or should we just, I don't know, bring the axe down in every single case. I mean, the punitive nature of it, I don't know that it has changed things for the better. I mean, has it made the world a better place? I don't know. So, yeah.
So that's what we got. I can't hold on. Let me pull up the listener so I can give him his props. Because I do want to thank you for just the idea of bringing that sort of thing up on our show. Oh, it was actually a DM. But shouts to you, Aiden, man. Thank you for DMing Nando and asking us to bring this up today, because I think it's important to the work we're trying to do, and I think this shit informs how we feel and why we feel it. So thank you for that. Yeah, man, make sure you guys are subscribed to every single other Count the Dings offering. Of course, make sure you're checking out the OG show with Amin, Black Trey, myself, John Gervais. Of course, Crazy Sexy Cool with the wonderful ladies of Las Vegas, Meek and Elizabeth and Bethany. They're great. They're going to give you sex advice. They're going to talk about their own lives. And these women live interesting lives, y'all. Please check out Crazy Sexy Cool. Of course, Growing Up the Same with Trey and my man Jay, interviewing luminaries all across the culture. They had my man DA on there last week, which I just thought was an amazing sort of culture clash, man. Like my coworker DA, obviously one of my heroes in the media space, and Trey and Jay conducted a dope interview with him about just his life, his come up. It's just crazy. I would encourage you guys to go check it out. David Aldridge is literally in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And yeah, make sure you listen to the Friday Mailbag. Centerfold, Pack Your Knives is coming back. Check out everything that we got to offer on the feed. Fernando Vila, for my brother, Rob Lopez, who I love, not just because he produces this show, because he's just an awesome dude and a friend. Shouts to Rob Lopez on the ones and threes. We'll see you guys next week. We're out of here.